Hello and welcome back to All Art is Subjective, and that's the end of the video. Bye! In today's day and age, it is a wonder to me that we're still trying to figure out who has the best opinions or who has the right opinions or who's kinda cute or who's just a mess. Asmongold, aka Zack, is a YouTuber and streamer who does a lot of reaction content, does a lot of review content, talking about different kinds of media, online drama. He makes a lot of it. The man puts out so much content every day. No disrespect, he's on the grind, hustle mindset, whatever. I don't care about him. I care about the things that he said. Zack recently went viral on Twitter for reacting to a video of Ludwig talking about AI, specifically AI in video games. That tweet calling out Zack has been taken down, which is actually sort of a silver lining for this video because I do want to get into the nuance of Zack's conversation here. Zack did respond to this tweet in a 2-hour long video, which I will not be responding to the entirety of here, but he says in the video that the clips in that tweet were taken out of context, so I don't want to do that. I want this conversation to be as honest as possible, so I will be including Zack's retroactive context to the words in that clip. In my responses to his response to the tweet that was a response to his response to Ludwig's response. So first and foremost, getting this out of the way, the video game that we're talking about or that sparked this conversation initially is Palworld, one you might have heard about, which is basically a newer Pokemon-esque game that was released on Steam. Basically Pokemon, but with more bloodshed, I guess. There were rumors for a while that this game was created with AI or AI designs, AI in some capacity. Palworld has since flat out denied this claim, so the aspect of the conversation that it's about Palworld seems irrelevant now, but I think the initial conversation around Palworld leads us to this interesting place of discussion. Let's go to the beginning of this clip, Zack's reaction to the beginning of this clip, and talk about a common misunderstanding when it comes to what AI art is.
To expect me to draw a moral line, I have to perceive a difference that I consider substantial. And I do not consider the difference substantial. Like, I don't view there to be like a large moral difference between an artist using other art as inspiration or to basically create something that's another version of what the original artist made. I don't view that as a tremendously morally different thing versus generative AI creating an aggregate of art by using 1 million pictures. I don't feel like these are that different. And I haven't read an argument that makes me believe that I'm wrong.
Yeah, you haven't read an argument that makes you believe that you're wrong because you don't think the opinions of artists matter when it comes to talking about AI art, but we will get into that. He goes on to say this.
I don't believe original art generally exists. I think that almost all art is built off of other art, and that doesn't take away from it. It builds on it. It makes it more special. It makes it better. Maybe not better, but sometimes it adds texture to it.
Yeah! Yes! Yes, unironically, yes! You are saying the point. You don't believe it for the right reasons, but you are saying the right words with your voice and face, which is a good place to start. And it is so rare to find somebody so close to the point who still doesn't get the point. Sorry, now I feel like I'm beating around the bush. Let me get to my main point. What I'm trying to say is that the thing that makes art so beautiful, that gives it that extra little texture, is that people made it. Whether it's Van Gogh putting his blood, sweat, and tears into a painting that depicts the frame of his window looking out from his French asylum, or it's your 5-year-old showing their first drawing of a Charmander, it doesn't matter. It makes you feel something. I don't believe in souls in a literal sense, and this is not where this discussion's going, I promise, but I believe in soul in the sense of like our emotions and our passion and our pain and our excitement and whatever can be exercised out of us through the medium of art. Then you get to show someone and be like, this was in my brain and now it's on this paper and you can see what was in my brain. Art kicks ass. Now I really hope that Zack doesn't listen to this video and immediately goes like, oh, well, you're biased, you're an artist, whatever, fuck you. Because I do think that I'm kind of the perfect person to address this topic, and let me explain to you why. I do a lot of drawing myself. I am an artist. I have created a lot of art both in public and in private, but the reason why I feel like I'm the perfect person to address this topic is because the public art that I put out, a lot of it is fan art. The plot thickens. Sometimes the fan art that I post is original concepts, sometimes it's crossovers, sometimes it's drawing something live action in the style of something animated. But yeah, despite the very obvious statement that yes, all art is derivative, my art on that page is incredibly derivative. And I have no illusions otherwise. So why do I bother, right? If I believe that art is some like deep expression of my soul, but I also believe that like all art is derivative, and I know that the art that I create could be created by somebody else, or God forbid, fed and processed through some sort of AI, why bother? Like, you could very easily say that it is not some like open, barren hole in my soul being filled by the joy and excitement and passion that I feel in my bones for Scooby-Doo meeting Danny Phantom. But it sorta is. Right? On the most basic level, these are two shows that I grew up with and that I really enjoyed, and it was an idea that I wanted to see executed, so I did it. And yes, it is derivative to use these styles on a technical level, but it is also a creation that I sank hours into. At the end of the day, this is my art, but I'm also not shy to admit that it was very obviously inspired by other artists. And inspiration is an important thing to think about here. If you took a class of 100 people to all draw a red rose, for example, no two images of that rose would ever look the same. They literally could not ever look the same. Somebody could draw a rose in the style of Pablo Picasso like Julie Ford Oliver did here. And you could say, ah yes, what a Picasso rose. That is what that would look like. Yes, of course. But then Picasso himself also drew roses. And this doesn't look anything like the other one. The reason for this is because even Pablo Picasso was inspired by different people. Picasso art is inspired by Picasso. But Picasso's art is not inspired by Picasso. You could literally say, this is a picture of a rose that I drew. This is not a picture of a rose I drew. Draw this exact picture of a rose. Copy it exactly. They couldn't do it. Nobody could do that, because we always, as artists, are still subject to our own brains and our own limitations. We are restricted by our own perspectives and experience. We are shackled to the way that we first learned how to draw a fucking line. However, AI is not beholden to those same restrictions. Sorry, I just thought about somebody in like 50 years saying they were inspired by AI and creating the most soulless art imaginable. Haunting. But yeah, AI is not beholden to the same restrictions as a human being, and for some stuff, that's great. For a lot of industries, it's wonderful to have this sort of technology, but art is not something where the technical skill of the artist is the only applicable criteria for the appreciation of that art. It is one, for sure. It is one thing for sure. But I do not think that AI generated images are impressive or better, or honestly really even like up to snuff when compared to human art. Because yes, Asmongold may be correct in saying that humans create derivative art. Woohoo, yes, we know. We will always be inspired in what we create. However, and you've probably heard this rhetoric before, AI cannot be inspired. There is no emotional connection to the images that it pulls from, where it's going, ooh, this person typed in the words Frida Kahlo inspired dragon, so I'm gonna make sure to pull from this piece, not just because it shows like fire and dragons, but because I feel anger and power, and like these are the kind of lines that she would draw when drawing this thing, and I'm gonna grab this spattering of pixels from these 5 to 10 pieces because these show the power and fire of a dragon, and they also just feel the most like her style, like on a gut level. No, of course, that's not happening. AI cannot be inspired. It takes from other art, not even on a derivative level, but literally, and then creates something on a varying scale of plagiarism. Sometimes it creates something very distant from the original sources that it pulls from. However, there are cases like this one, with Naomi, an artist who had drawn fan art of the show Arcane. She posted a tweet that read, well, it finally happened to me too, because another Arcane fan account posted art of this same character, but generated through AI. This is not inspiration. This is not even derivative. This is theft. This is art, created clearly by somebody with passion and love for the source material. This, on the other hand, couldn't even tell you what a buckle looks like. You know, there's a difference. Okay, let's go back to Zack because he disagrees. Zack thinks that most people don't see a large difference.
The reason why I don't think that people see a large difference is that I've never seen a large-scale consumer shift to where consumers are purchasing something that is more inconvenient or more expensive because of the way that it's produced. Now, some people do this. I'm not arguing that nobody does this. But the biggest companies in the world are oftentimes the most immoral ones. And I think that there's a reason for that. It's because people don't really care where their products come from.
More like they don't know a lot of the time, right? And I'm talking about like the general public, not like online people. But also, I think there's something to be said about the fact that like Zack is sort of right here. A lot of people will not change their purchasing habits based on how something is produced. However, a lot of the time, the method of production of something especially something mass-produced, does not affect the outcome of the product. AI-generated images and human-created art are two entirely different products with two entirely different goals. If your goal is to create something mass-produced, like a phone or a car or a fucking plastic bin, I don't know, most people will not care if it is a human being making those things or if it is a machine. Is it possible that if people were making these products that they would come out higher quality? Sure, but I also don't think that because machines make things cheaper and faster that it automatically equates it to being immoral. Now, Zack, before you pause the video and go, see? He just said it. He said it doesn't matter. People will go for things that are cheaper and fast. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying it doesn't matter with AI art. I'm saying that I don't think this is a fair comparison. I do not think this is a one-to-one. Because before the automation of a lot of factory work, when there would be a higher demand for these products, it would create a direct adverse effect on the people working in the factories. People needed to work longer hours. They were at higher risk for being exposed to dangerous chemicals or for heart attacks or strokes because of the pressure of the longer work hours and environment and whatever. There was more child labor, and there still is in some parts of the world. And Zack does touch on that stuff in this video, to be fair. And I get that his point is that consumers at large are apathetic to the conditions of the production of a product and would prioritize a cheaper product every time. I agree with that part of it. When it comes to mass-produced products, yeah, I get it. I do not think it's a fair one-to-one comparison to say like, well, no one cares if it's a human or a machine when it comes to making this plastic tub, so let's just do the same with art. Who cares? One of these things is mass-produced, and one of these things requires a human touch. Every piece of art that is ever produced will be entirely different from every other piece of art that will ever be produced. I think these are not I don't think they're comparable. Now, don't get me wrong. I definitely think that there are artistic industries like VFX, for example, where more parts of that process could be automated. And I say this as a professional TV and commercial editor myself. And there are parts of post-production where AI is being implemented, but it's not in an intrusive way, and it's not anywhere where humanity demands to be felt. There are AI products that will do like a quick sound pass for you. There are AI products that will cut up a podcast to cut out dead space. But most of the time, you still need to go in and clean that stuff up. So that's not always a perfect system. I think that AI is best used for efficiency, not best used for human replacement. I just think what Zack's talking about here kind of like sucks the soul out of a project just so like he can play a video game faster that he might have enjoyed more if it had more artistic merit. I don't know.
AI and the sentiment from artists. This is the part that's going to make people mad. Opinions don't matter. It just doesn't matter, because what matters is the opinion of the people that are buying the product. Yes. Like, it doesn't, like, your opinion on it, like, just because you do it doesn't, like, nobody cares. Like, it's not relevant. It's like whenever one of these, like, you know, really well-respected and really respectable directors talks about how bad Marvel is. Shut up, old man. Shut up. I like watching the Thor movie. It was cool. So people really didn't like that clip. And I want to say really quickly that I stand behind what I said 100%. And I'm right. And the emotional outbursts of man-children on Twitter over the next day or two will subside, logic will prevail, reason will wiggle its way in, and people will see the truth of what I said.
I stand proudly as an emotional man-child of Twitter with no logic or no reason in any of my pasty white bones. I am an unreasonable sheep who is blind to the truth. Please don't clip that out of context. Thank you, and good night, America. Of course! Artists' opinions matter when it comes to art. Are you fucking kidding me? Where the fuck do you think art comes from? You wouldn't have AI art without art. Art literally couldn't exist without artists giving a shit about the art, without giving a shit about each other's art. Art is not purely a product to be consumed. I feel like I shouldn't even have to say that, but like it seems to be the context of this conversation, so let's go. Zack goes on to say that not only is he objectively correct, but that he can prove his point. So let's listen to what Zack's proof is on this, shall we? Because if I'm not mistaken, earlier he said that he was open to hearing what artists had to say. He just hasn't read an argument that's convinced him yet. And now, less than 6 minutes later into this video, he says, I am right, you are wrong, I can prove it, and if you disagree with me, you're a man-child. So let's check this out. Let's check out Asmongold's proof that artists' opinions on art do not matter.
So almost all art has relatively no intrinsic value. Like if you're at a if you are stranded on an island, would you rather have a cooler full of food, or would you rather have the Mona Lisa?
Now, this is interesting. The idea of intrinsic value. The idea that if something's value is subjective, or that the value of something is solely extrinsic, means that it has less value. Interesting. Zack, in his point, contrasts art with a hammer, saying that a hammer has intrinsic value because it has a built-in function. Nope. Not what that means. That hammer might mean something to you, but if I don't know what a hammer is, or if I don't know what it does, if there's anybody, not even just on planet Earth, but like in the entire multiverse, that might not know what a hammer can do, if that person exists at all, then the hammer cannot have intrinsic value by definition. Because intrinsic value just means that something has value just by the nature of it existing. It has to have intrinsic value.
Art does not have a functional value. A Picasso painting is not going to do anything. But it will have value to some people. And that value is subjective. And the fact that the value is subjective proves my point.
Except no, it doesn't. Your opinion that artists' input isn't valuable relies on your objective perspective that art has no intrinsic value. Your argument entirely falls apart, however, if I say these 3 words. That doesn't matter. Money has no intrinsic value. Relationships have no intrinsic value. Being alive has no intrinsic value. Life, the universe, every particle in every galaxy that has ever existed or ever will throughout the history of fucking time has no value just by the nature that it exists. Things can have a function, things can have a meaning, things can have a purpose, but none of those things can possibly be intrinsic. Oxygen has no value just for being oxygen. Oxygen has value to us because we need it. That is extrinsic value applied to oxygen. Money and love and power and life all have meaning because we say they do. If I draw a smiley face on a sticky note and stick it to my fucking forehead and say this means the world to me, and you say that doesn't mean a fucking thing to me, we are just attributing 2 levels of value to something, because extrinsic value is still value. Zack goes on to give examples of art with no value by sort of just mean-spiritedly scrolling through the World of Warcraft category on Twitch and finding a bunch of streamers with 0 to 2 viewers and saying this about them.
You're gonna find people that have 1, 2, 0 viewers, and they're streaming the same as everybody else is, but nobody cares about them, and it doesn't really matter that they're streaming. There's no value to this stream. They're not going to make any money. Now, maybe they will in the future. But whenever they do in the future, the reason for that will be because people see value in them.
Who are you, motherfucker, to say that these people's streams have no value? Who fucking cares if somebody who comes across the stream doesn't see the value in it, if the person who's streaming it does see the value in it? Popularity and monetary value are not the only kinds of fucking value. I will admit, some of these people may be under the illusion that they're gonna get rich and famous from streaming, but not all of them. Some of them, Zack, just fucking enjoy it. It doesn't matter if they're so passionate about it that it makes them cry at night, or if they're just looking for something to do. If the person who's making it applies value to it, it has value. And I think this is what drives me up a wall about Zack using this as proof that art has no value. Just him sitting back being like, look at this shit. Means nothing to me. People creating art for themselves? What the fuck? Peasantry! I would argue that while yes, consumer opinions do matter when it comes to a product meant to be sold, obviously, the person who creates the art is the first person to see the art. So inherently, that person or people or team's opinion on that art has to matter before the art goes out. And then artists' opinions on other art have to matter in order for the elevation and the natural evolution of art to progress.
So whenever I say an artist's opinion doesn't matter on their art, it's because whenever an artist says this is worth $50 to me and somebody else says no, it's not, the artist can still try to charge $50 for it, but nobody has to buy it because that value is decided by the customer. That's the way it works, is whenever you go to market with a product, you have to meet the customer's demand.
Okay, well, that's just a fundamental misunderstanding of the market. I don't even know how deeply I want to get into this, if I'm being honest. Art is priced on an insane number of factors. If we as a society all collectively agreed that no video game should cost more than $20, do you think that developers would then make their games cost $20? No, because the value cost of a game might hit like $30 based on like reputation and demand for the game, that sort of thing. But the game on the shelf might need to cost $60 or $70 per unit in order to pay developers and marketers and blah, 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 blah. If the publisher can't afford to put out a game at less than $60, they're either going to be like, oh, well, that's how much it cost and price that game that way anyway, and you might just not buy it. Or they might have to lower the quality of the production and use cheaper resources in order to put out a cheaper game, ultimately resulting in a worse product, which they don't want to do either because that damages their reputation and the demand for future games. But that value cost is not only based on what consumers want. Because believe it or not, Zack, we do not live in a bartering society. You cannot go into Best Buy and put Marvel's Spider-Man 2 down on the counter and say, I will not be paying more than $5 for this video game. And then have the Best Buy employee respond by saying, ah, yes, loyal customer, of course we must bend to the will of the consumer. This game will now cost $5 because that is what the consumer says. Please don't pay us $70. We were goofing. Because something like Marvel's Spider-Man 2 has an existing IP. It has an existing fan base. It has like 60 years of content and comics and movies and video games and whatever. The people pushing this game out also need to be looking at games of a similar type. So in that regard, yes, consumers contribute to the decided monetary value of that game, but consumers do not dictate the value of the entire game. The art and the quality of the art determined by the artists is also a huge factor. Let me give you a hypothetical future scenario. If the next Spider-Man game came out and it was entirely created using AI-generated assets, AI character designs, AI animations, a script generated by ChatGPT, do you think consumers would say that there's not much of a difference between that result of that game and the existing Spider-Man games? Yes, they might be able to release that game a lot faster. Yes, they might be able to release that game with a price tag of $10 because it costs virtually nothing to fucking make. But do you honestly think people would look at this game and be like, finally, an affordable Spider-Man game. Now we can get Spider-Man games every month forever, hooray! No! They would say Marvel made this dog shit game with AI? If this game is only $10, clearly they didn't put a lot of fucking work into it. And if the people who made it didn't give a shit about this game, why should I buy it? People would notice a difference. And I think it's a little silly to say that they wouldn't.
The only thing fundamentally that matters is if what you are doing is perceived to have value in the eyes of the public. And not the public, excuse me, in the eyes of the person you're selling it to.
What a cynical fucking take to say that if something doesn't have intrinsic value, that it doesn't matter. How fucking apathetic to not see value in things that matter to other people or to the people who created them.
Now, I understand that there's a lot of people that are angry because I'm saying this. Don't shoot the messenger. Or do. That's fine.
Promise?
But the reality is that I'm still not wrong. And this reality will be proven every single second of every day until the end of time.
No, it won't, because you're wrong. You are partially correct. All art is subjective. A lot of art, all art, I'll say, is derivative to varying degrees, you know? Demand does also contribute to monetary value in a free market economy. And the market does dictate the monetary value and only the monetary value of a product. However, art does not lose value by being less popular, by being seen by less people. Art only loses value by being less of art. Like, that whole idea really reeks of like the high value male, high value female shit. It's like, fuck. So let's get to my point here, which is always my point, which is AI generated images are not art. Therefore, even though you can be as cynical as you want and say that art has no intrinsic value, AI generated images have no value as art because they are something else entirely. So for a lot of the rest of this video, Zack is really like hammering these points home over and over and over again. So I'm not going to regale you with another 2 full hours of me repeating myself over and over and over again. You're welcome. I just really wanted to break this down because honestly, I do feel that Zack Asmongold is not alone in this take. And I think that more conversations around the ethics and practices of AI generated images needs to be discussed on a more public level, on both the consumer level and on the legislative level. You know, so the conversation could reach a point where maybe Zack considers it popular enough to have value. Christ. If you think my content had value, be sure to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you have not done so already. Be sure to hit that bell so you're notified every single time I upload a new video, which is going to be more often now, so you should probably freaking hit that button or whatever, maybe, I don't know. Leave your comments down below. I'm really curious to know what you think about this whole conversation. Do you see value in art? Do you see value in artists' opinions on art? Let me know all that good stuff in the comments down below, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.